very unique looking car with a six-wheeler, then this is a really great kit. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and I have a special open boxing. Seems that I always have a special one, but I do go and select them, and I think this is pretty special. So this is, what can you see there? Tyrrell P34. Look, it's a big one. It's the 12 scale one. So I have done a unboxing of the smaller 20 scale one, which has got photo etch parts, but this is the big, massive 12 scale one now. And it is spectacular. Now it is an old kit, very much like the 20 scale one. So let's have a look from the top. There we go, nice box art. Tamiya's classic box art. So this is dating back to the late 1970s. The car itself was from 1976, I think, and it did come out in a few different guises. So this is the more common version that you normally see as a plastic kit. The 20 scale one they've actually done as a Japanese Grand Prix version, which had a few little differences to it, but predominantly it was very much the same. Okay, so the six-wheeler, they did the four little tiny wheels. Quite interesting. They've got independent double wishbone suspension on the front, and then they've got the big massive tires at the rear. All right, let's crack it open and let's see what's different about this one compared to the original release. All right, so when we open up the box, you think, wow, great presentation. You got this huge sheet of photo etch here. We've got some machined engine intake stacks, and then we've got all the other bits underneath here. So let's take this out bit by bit. Now here we have all the photo etch. Now I'm not going to open that up because I don't really want to alter any of this for whoever will receive it. All right, so you can see the photo etch over here. We've got the wing end plates. We've got the front, what do you call that? A little apron. And then we've got all of this. These are the meshes for the radiators, all the grills and such. And then as we go along, over here we've got some buckles, so seatbelt buckles. There's some tie downs, and then we have all the ventilated discs. So this will fit over the existing molding of the disc brakes, and this just adds the really fine ventilated engraved lines there. Okay, and apart from that, something really special is this part here. So these are the CNC machined trumpets that go on the top of the intakes on the engine. So much superior to the plastic molded ones. There's going to be no mold lines at all, and they've got the natural finish. So you can leave them as is, no need to paint those. So that's not the only addition to this particular kit. The other new items, let's put that aside over here, are the decals. So these decals have been printed by Cartograf in Italy, famous for being the premier printers of decals in the world. So there's many manufacturers that use them. These are much thinner than the original Tamiya decals, which quite often did not contour to curves very well. So we've got the helmet decals you can see just down here. Underneath here will be the tire decals. They're flipped around so you can't actually see them. They'll be the white reverse decals that are quite often used on tires. Let's see if I can do a close-up here. Here we go. Now I'm not going to open these up either because I don't want to soil them. See how they're individually numbered. Really nice yellow, really vibrant. Got the white decals there. Okay, so it's really important to have really nice decals. The white will need to be present over blue, and poor quality decals, normally the blue will show through. Okay, also with the yellow. Okay, yellow is a very, I'd say a dilute pigment, and so these would have been printed through the white first, and then the yellow put on top. And then over here, we have the fabric stickers for the seatbelts. So a bit hard to see the texture there through the plastic, but a really nice touch. Okay, so those are the additions. Now let's look at what we get with the actual original moldings. Okay, so thinking that these were originally molded or cut, what's that, 30, 40 years ago, these are incredibly good. Okay, so these are the chrome components. You've got the rollover hoops here. You've got the disc brakes. They're in 2 parts. And one other thing that would have been improved is the chrome finishing. So chrome plating 40 years ago was really rough and ready. If you've built some old kits, you might have seen some really bad stuff which has got dust and all sorts of debris stuck in it, and it's really thick. But what we got here is, you can see how these are molded and they do have all the ventilator lines in them, but obviously with the photo etch it's going to be much smoother. Okay, and they're split in 2 parts because these are actually vented through the centers as well. So across here, I don't know if you can see, you probably see on this side, see the little holes there? So that's for the cross drilling ventilation. So when you sandwich them together, you can see the holes in the sides. Okay, across over here we've also got the mirrors, rear vision mirror, and then we've got the other trumpets. So these are the molded trumpets that are supplied. So you won't be using any of these, you'll be using the machine ones. Because one of the problems here is, you see how they're joined here on the sprue. If you cut that and you cleaned it up, you're going to lose all that beautiful finish on that chrome. So alternatively, there are a lot of good chrome finishes now. So if they didn't come with the trumpets, you can always clean it up, take off the chrome and respray them with chrome finish, and they'll look great. Okay, so they're the chrome bits. What we've got next, we've got some grey engine bits. That over there. Incredibly sharp for a 40-year-old mold. Okay, there's no flash whatsoever. Okay, let's have a close look. Okay, all the little bits, hose joiners. You see the V end of the engine crankcase, the side of the crank. You've got various pumps and things. That's where the trumpets are going to be sitting, on that intake. There's sections of the gearbox. And you can see all the reinforcing casting vanes there, all really crisp. There's the sides. So you've got the exhaust. And then that's like an engine mount, I think, that triangle thing. And then other bits and pieces. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Another silver sprue. There's a bit of black sprue on there as well. Okay, so here we go. Let's move that aside. Pop that over there. All right, so this one's got some wing mounts, and there's still other engine components. So you've got connectors and hosing. Let's do a close look in here. All right, so I can see all the various pumps and things. Got these things here. What are they, injectors maybe? I don't know. Little bits of framework. You've got the wing mount. Okay, a wing mount here and on the other side. Very sort of tank type things. And these look like parts of a shock. Probably the rear one, they're quite big. And then, don't know what they are. Bits. Okay, so that's a set of silver bits, and then we move on to these black parts here. Okay, so these are radiators and the heads of the engine. I just get the reflection right, and you'll be able to see that the Ford is actually molded into the engine heads there, the covers. Okay, you've got all these radiators, which are going to have the photo-etch extra detail put onto them, so they're going to look super sharp. I'm just going to scan through some of these bits. So there is the apron, which is going to be replaced by the photo-etch, the big piece across the top. That's for the front end. And then you've got all these other radiators. It's actually a lot of cooling bits here. They're actually in halves. And then here, they look like suspension components. Okay. What have we got here? We've got a small bit of black bits. Let's just zoom in a bit closer. And there's some clear bits in here as well. Okay, so this one has got the suspension arms at the front end. Okay, so small wishbones for the front. You've got all the various push rods and such. The bottoms of each individual shock. And then you've got these steering rods. Sway bar across the top there. And then a whole heap of links. So these are perhaps used on the rear end as well. And there's another sway bar. And then that looks like a steering column. Really nice, intricate. Okay, and you see how these are open C shapes. So these are clipped into place so you can actually get turning wheels and operating suspension. Might as well leave the zoom tight there, and I've got some clear bits which are going to be pretty hard to see. But we have, that's the rain light for the rear, so that will need to be painted clear red. And then there's a couple of round bits here. Don't know what they're for. They could be standoffs, so for screwing into a base. I'll check the manual for that, but there's the side windows on the cockpit. Okay. What have we got now? Let's start moving into some blue bodywork. Okay, so we've got the floor pan and parts of the, well, there's a floor pan. Okay, so that's the interior part of it. There's the base. You can see all the really fine rivets. And remember, this tooling goes back to the late 70s. Look how clean it is. Okay. How nice is that? And that's on the bottom where you're barely going to see it. Now, if you don't know, Tamiya actually do have a six-wheeler in their museum. So you sort of understand how they get that accurate. Here we go. We've got blue body parts now. We've got wing side plates. So these are going to be replaced with the photo-etch parts included. You've got the aerofoils. We've got the seat section. Here's another aerofoil. And then here's the top of the cowling. Okay, so you're going to have this section sitting in here. And this will be the front end where the 4 smaller tyres are going to be sitting. Okay, let's put that over there. What have we got now? We've got some more body panels. Okay, so there's some black parts here, either shock parts or bump stops. These are semi-flexible, so probably an ABS plastic. Probably tell me on the back here if I can read it. Oh, it's polyethylene. Okay, so it's softer. These look like bump stops here. That's getting tight. There you go. They definitely look like bump stops. Shock ends maybe, or even drive shafts. No? Yeah, they're probably drive shaft rubber boots. There's some L brackets. Okay, let's get into the bodywork. So we've got, what have we got here? These are side pods. Along here as well. Super smooth. And then we've got some larger plates. We'll get into the front wing. See how it's got that aerofoil shape on the front end. It's quite chunky. And then we've got the cockpit sides. So this is where those clear bars I just saw will go, little side windows. There's a rear vision mirror there, it's all aerodynamic. And then the other half is just there. Really nice. Okay, what do we got now? So some more silver bits. All right, what do we have here? We've got sort of monocoque and chassis components. Maybe some sensors and things. We've got the cockpit instrument panel there. So here we go. Again, looking at this, look at the fins on that, that's just spectacular. This is a late 1970s tooling. There's the instrument cluster. Now we've got, this will be the steering rack, I think. A rollover hoop, extinguisher, some sort of bottle, another part of the rollover hoop, maybe the engine mount, that part. Then we've got, this will be steering, maybe, so a universal joint. And then got some shocks, that'll be for the rear shocks. Pedals, so they're the pedals right there. Individual pedals, quite a lot of detail in the back there. Some chunky bits, don't know what they're for. And then we've got these panels here, parts of the chassis. And these little boxes look like sensors. Okay, what do we got next? All right, so we've got a bag of tires. I'm not going to open that up, that's all fully sealed. We've got springs. Let's have a close look here. So you may be able to see on those rear tires, there's the depth gauges which are molded in. Those little 3 marks. And they're all the way around. Big chunky tire. Got clear vinyl tubing. Got some black vinyl tubing of all kinds, so that's all for the plumbing and the electricals. You see the little springs inside the bag with the screws. So that's for the working suspension. More springs on this side. And some larger vinyl tubing as well. If I flip this around, you'll be able to see these are 4 smaller tires. And they have the depth gauges in them as well. Okay, let's put that aside there. What have we got here? So we've got the actual monocoque here. How good does it look? So that is the main structural element where the driver is going to be sitting. So the tanks for the fuel will probably be sitting in the back here as well. All your suspension is going to be hanging off this section. Let's have a look a bit closer at these rivets and such. So you can see all these panels here. You've got raised detail as well where the panel meets another panel. All your rivets. And then there was a flat panel which I opened up earlier. They'll just go on the base here. And how good is it? And you'll notice too that when I spun around, you see all the injection marks on the bottom. So they've actually put a bit of thought into that back then, so that the injection marks were at a point where you don't really need to do much work. I mean, alternatively, if they were being lazy, they could have put all the injection marks in here, which would have been a shame. But that's some of the planning which you may not appreciate until you actually have a closer look at these models. Okay, so there's your monocoque. What else have we got here? Okay, so this is the last bag. We've got 2 sprue within here. And what we have is we've got suspension components, so more suspension arms. We've got uprights or hubs. We've got these ones too, so that'll be the front uprights. Got the steering wheel. Brake ducts. Stuff that looks like a sway bar. Let's get in closer. Okay, so there's your steering hubs, and you see how you've got that open section here. This is where the C-shaped rods are going to clip into place. So you've got operating suspension, same with the top and the bottom there. They'll clip into the arms, and you'll be able to see that. You see these open C channels here. That's for clipping into place for operation. There's your steering wheel. Actually, that could be the steering column. It's a bit hard to say. You can a lot of rods with universals on it. Some hubs going up to here. Various other bits and pieces. Small little bits. There's your brake air ducts. This bit here that looks like a sway bar. And then some chunky bits. So there's probably the rear uprights there. And then we go into this section. That could be the engine mount there actually. How good does it all look? Okay, so they're all the bits and pieces. So let's have a look at the manual. And the manual is pretty big. I'm going to have to zoom out for that. How's that? Is that everything? That's probably everything there. Let's make a bit of room here. All right. So sort of it's a rejigged manual, which is a good thing. Because even though the early manuals were great, the newer ones are much easier to follow. Okay, so we've got a bit of history there. We've got a paint guide here with the Tamiya codes, recommended tools to use, and then some guides here on how to do various things, such as the painting aspect, the decals, undercoating, and how to do the photo etch parts. So with photo etch parts, you're going to need some CA glue, or super glue as it's commonly called, to put those together, and some tips on how to clean up photo etch as well. Okay, so we're getting into the building. So we're getting into the monocoque first. All little bits and pieces on the front end of the cockpit. We've got all the steering rack is going in. So you'll notice here that it's actually working. You have to be careful not to put too much glue in here. Otherwise the rack and pinion is going to get stuck and you're not going to get your steering motion. All that's going into the front end here. The bottom of the monocoque is attached with this sort of skid plate or suspension mounting point there. Oh, here's the L brackets here for the extra strength. Then continuing on with the front end, you've got all the brake cylinders, little I don't know, little canisters for some sort of liquid. We've got the fire extinguisher, and then we start working on the side panels for mounting the front suspension. So you've got your sets of arms going in place. There's the wishbones, little shocks getting made. You can see here the top arms going in place. You've got your disc brakes, so 2 pieces for the plastic and then 2 for each side with the photo etch. Into the hubs, and then over here same thing, and this is attaching the uprights onto the front suspension arms, and you've got the thick hoses there for the cooling. Okay, from there we've got those 2 sub-assemblies and they're getting mounted onto the monocoque. And then here's the sway bars, they're going in place. And we've got the, I guess this is the tubular structure for the actual dashboard. You've got the gear shift in place. Here's a universal for your steering column. So it's got an actual working universal joint in the center there. So be careful not to glue that. It's got the do not glue symbols there. Dashboard. Top section of your cowling. Then we start with the rear end. So we've got the rollover hoop. We've got the probably oil canisters. And then we get into the engine. So engine is made up of all those various components. And then we get into, this is the vinyl, which is in the distributor. And they'll be spread off to all the various spark plugs. We've got the heads here with the trumpets. So use the aluminium trumpets, of course. That was a special add-on. And then you've got a guide here on how to do your wiring loom diagram on the top of the engine. So quite complicated. And then we have that all going into place in the center of the V8. All right, so over here we're building up the rear gearbox. So gearbox is assembled. You've got your rear disc brakes, again with the photo etch on them. Cooling here and mounted onto the gearbox. And then we start building up all the supports for the suspension, which is hanging off the gearbox as well. So the gearbox is mated up onto the engine, and then we start building up the exhausts, and then the rear hubs are assembled here. Rear hubs getting mounted onto the rear gearbox with the shocks, and then we've got it's actually a 6-point rear suspension. So we've got some of those long arms going in place and mounted on the engine mount, and then we get into building up the radiators. And the radiators again have got the photo etch, super fine mesh detail on the front. They get mounted on the sides of the engine. Bit of plumbing work. Sway bars, rear wing mount. Got a final bit of plumbing going in there for your cooling. And then here's the seat belts. Multi pieces to do the buckle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces of photo etch just to do the quick release buckle. And then you've got your fabric seat belts. They get put together, put into place in the seat, and then we build up the wheels, tires, and you've got the decals there for the Goodyear on the tires. Seat component gets dropped into place. All your wheels and tires are fitted. And then the final assembly of the front cowl, the wing, and the side photo etch wing plates. Your side pods go on. Front wing with the photo etch splitter or apron on the front. Got all your little supports there, all photo etch as well. And then we've got the internals of the wing, and then that's dropped into place. And then this is your diagram on doing all your decals on the bodywork. So there you go. So 1976. So Patrick DePatia and Jody Schechter. And then you've got your little legend of all your parts, so you know where to find all your bits. And that's it. So there you go. So that is my open box review of the really nice 1/12 scale Tyrrell Six Wheeler. This is the new release with the additional photo-etch and the aluminium machined trumpets. Also the Cartograf decals. So if you like a challenge, you can see that was a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of bits. Very unique looking car with the six wheeler. Then this is a really great kit. It's been so super popular so far. So don't miss out on this release because it'll probably be many years before they release one again. So there you go. That's the Tamiya 1/12 scale. What do they call it again? P34 Six Wheeler, 1976 model. Super nice kit. So if you liked my review, please give me a like down below. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. So thank you for watching.